In my mind, there's one choice for roofing around here, and I'd go with your best choice. Whether it's time to replace your roof or repair it, Best Choice Roofing provides top-notch roofing services tailored to meet the unique needs of Detroit homes and businesses. They serve the region and inside the city of Detroit, too. You can find out more at bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit. That's bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit, or call 313-474-7031. That's 313-474-7031. Hello, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is a beautiful Wednesday, November 27th, 2024. I am Jer Stays. We are coming right up on the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, so we're switching around our schedule a little bit. And, since we may or may not have a Friday show, depending on the Lions game, I figured we'd bring Mr. Friday in on a Wednesday. Devon O'Reilly, thank you for making some time. The streets are getting closed for the Thanksgiving parade. Things are starting to feel like the holidays here in downtown Detroit.
Yeah, I guess call this a special episode. It definitely feels like a Friday. It's got the Friday vibe because we're kind of going into a holiday weekend. And I'm here, so I bring those Friday vibes, which includes coffee. We'll have a nice light episode. But we do have some things to talk about and a little bit of our roots of about towning. So I'm looking forward to it, Jer.
For sure. Now, all week I've been asking favorite sides. Mr. O'Reilly, who loves you love holiday cooking.
I do. Thanksgiving's such a great holiday, right? It's probably been underrated a lot. You sandwich between Halloween and Christmas. I would argue, though, the whole idea of Thanksgiving is eating and watching football and, watching a parade. The idea of Thanksgiving, I think, is much better as a day than Christmas Day. I enjoy Thanksgiving Day much more than Christmas Day.
I also think that Thanksgiving gets blemished because there's so much focus on the turkey. And yes, I will be making a personal turkey, but the magic of the food of Thanksgiving to me is the sides.
Right. And also, I'll say this. I'm not a turkey guy. I'm a ham guy. You can have ham for Thanksgiving. You don't have to have a turkey.
Yeah, I like ham, but it's usually a little salty.
Okay.
So I like to go a little bit more on the turkey tip just because of that. I have a little ham, I have a little turkey, but I dive into the sides.
Of course. Well, my favorite, there's so many to choose from, and it's hard to go wrong. My wife makes a really good green bean casserole. It's delicious.
Yes, somebody else, finally.
But I do have to say, my favorite though that I look forward to the most is the stuffing or the dressing, specifically the cornbread stuffing.
Oh, the cornbread stuffing.
Got to work it in. My favorite food has to be incorporated in my favorite side. So the cornbread stuffing is it makes it that little extra sweetness. Just the corn is, it's just good stuff. So yeah, cornbread stuffing is my all-time favorite.
All right. Now, do you put it in the bird or outside of the bird?
Outside, because I don't want the bird. I don't need the bird.
You're bird free.
Give me ham, some cornbread stuffing, some green bean casserole.
What is special about your wife's green bean casserole? I want to know the details.
Do you want to know? It's actually because we've talked on this episode about, she has some allergies and dietary restrictions. She actually makes it relatively healthy, but it tastes really good. So there's no eggs or heavy cream or anything like that in it at all. She does use a cream of mushroom soup. It's got the onions.
Okay.
The fried onions on it. It's very savory, but also relatively healthy for a green bean casserole.
This will be the first time that I actually do slivered almonds on my green bean.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Yes, she has the slivered almonds.
Okay, that would really healthy it up.
Yeah,
actually,
a little crunch and it's both, so it's really good.
So you tried a new thing that opened, Social Brews.
Yeah,
I saw some pictures. I didn't really hear a ton of buzz about this one.
No, I want to talk about this because it's one of those where I love to see a business succeed. This is in an odd location, Jer. I want to say odd, but it's really random. I have a trouble explaining exactly where it is, unless you work downtown or it's in the financial district. We'll start there. It's in the 211 building. Can you picture where that is?
Isn't that where the Convention and Visitors Bureau was or is?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a white building, kind of nondescript, to be very honest with you.
It's mostly just
very corporate looking.
Yeah, and it's mostly just offices.
Is it up on that podium, in the back?
Yes, and it's on the.
Oh, that's where. So when I worked downtown in the Central Business District, there was a diner near that spot that I really liked. It's long gone. Okay, so I know where it is. It's over there across from the Starbucks and the convention hall.
211 West 4th Street. is where it's at. So you can access the building and Social Brews from both sides. You could go up on Fort Street, walk through the building, but the space is huge. It's a huge like food hall-esque type of space that was recently. I mean, you can tell it's been recently just redone just to perfection. All brand new shiny things. Here's my favorite part, Jerry. It's one of those little bit of everything spaces. It is a coffee shop. It is a cafe. They have breakfast sandwiches and breakfast items, baked goods, things like that. Yeah, they have a full bar.
So I was really thrown off by the title.
I know. They have, so was I. I walked in, I'm like, wait a second, this is way more than I expected. They have a full bar with a cocktail menu. They have salads, sandwiches, so lunchtime spot. And then the grand finale, they have a wall of self-serve beer taps, which now we have, I think, at least 3 in Detroit of the self-serve beer places. So add this one to the list.
I feel like this is the wave.
And I'm here for it, my friend.
Let's talk about the vibes of Social Brew. You sent me some pictures. You're right, very food hall-y.
Yeah, very like not sparse, but like clean, wooden chairs, concrete floor. It's a big space. So I'm thinking like, don't worry about bringing people here for like a business lunch or a happy hour. There's plenty of room to spread out. TVs everywhere. So you got tons of TVs. There weren't a lot of people in there. I feel like, I have to assume most people don't know it's open. I'm guaranteeing 99% of the people it's going to be the first time that they hear about it.
You know what we should do on the newsletter and on the website and on the podcast? We should do a little going out guide in that corner of downtown. Because if you think about it, you've got the Shelby.
Yep.
You've got the Chop House.
Love the Chop House.
You've got the Caucus Club.
Yeah.
You've got, we
got Coffee Down Under, which is a coffee shop.
That's right there. Yeah, coffee shop. You've got the Starbucks right there. You've got in the Foundation Hotel, apparatus room.
Apparatus room. Right.
You've got a whole slew of things. You got, there was a new place. Was it Sugar Please?
Oh, yeah.
And that used to be a bar there over in 151 Jefferson.
Dug into that yet.
No.
And then you got, I guess, on the outer side of that, down 4th Street, you have the Maru, which is now Sayora or something like that.
Yeah, the people behind Black Ginger.
Yeah, so that's opening as well, too. It's kind of like adjacent. So
Dime, you've got Dime, right? Like there's actually a number of restaurants in there.
The financial district, it has a lot going on, but it's hard because people don't really go there.
And they don't really know where to park. I think I keep hearing that again. And that's my biggest fear, because there was that food hall that was open for a while. And I was having a conversation with a listener about they're like, oh, food halls can't work. And I'm like, it was in a really weird spot.
There's a lot of garages and surface lots. There's a lot of surface lots over there.
But I think it feels intimidating to people, right? To people just coming in where it's like, where is the pro tip to park?
I suppose. I'm always a street parking guy, and you can find Lafayette, Fort Street, Shelby. They all have street parking.
That's true.
It's not that difficult, especially on the weekends. There won't be. So I would street park. Get yourself the Park Detroit app. But I'll definitely go back to Social Brews. It'll be a lunch spot. Could be a happy hour spot. Here's the other thing, Jerry. I'm hoping that maybe they pull. It's kitty corner from Huntington. And now that we talked about Huntington is way more active, I'm thinking that they should be able to pull a lot of activity from conferences and events that are taking place over there.
We do have a closing to talk about.
Yeah, a really tough one.
And I remember actually when we were a blog covering this, what was it, 9 years ago?
Yeah.
When it opened, 8 Degrees Plato is closing in the Cass Corridor, right there, Cass and Peterborough.
One of my all-time, and I don't say this lightly, one of my all-time favorite places in Detroit for the time that I've been here. When I lived here, I would go there all the time. When I didn't live here, I would go and make my beer runs because they had this amazing selection of beers, seasonal stuff that was hard to find. The staff was super friendly, family-owned type of place. They had cocktails, dog-friendly, baby-friendly. There might be only one place in the entire city of Detroit that all 4 members of my family have been to, and I think it's 8 Degrees Plato. That's a fun fact for you, because obviously my wife and I have been there many, many times. We took our dog there when we had just our dog, and we took our daughter there when we had our daughter. So,
oh wow,
they've all been there. It sounds like it's closing, which is
end of the year. They're going to do a final party. They're going to do a final chili cook-off. They're sending it out right. From what I'm reading here, is they're going to retire.
Yeah, it's not like I think that let's kind of frame this in the right context here. It's not like 8 Degrees Plato was doing terribly. Nobody went there and nobody else liked it. It was popular. People loved it. They had a really good group of regulars, but the owners are retiring, and sounds like they were looking to maybe get somebody to take it over and take over the space, and that didn't work out. And so now they have to shutter. Look, Jer, I'm a eternal optimist, so I'm hoping that maybe something still happens. Maybe somebody listening to this with some money or some experience
or wants to turnkey something that's actually a pretty cool space.
Can take the space over.
Yeah.
If you're listening, tell your friends, tell other people you know. This is an amazing bar, amazing beer store, one of a kind.
Up and coming corner. You've got Detroit shipping there. You've got the Peterborough. You've got new stuff happening in the old Chung space.
I hope someone listening can take advantage of this opportunity because I really don't want to lose 8 Degrees Plato.
Yeah, well, congrats to them for a heck of a run. At the end of the day, that's a heck of a run.
It is, especially around here in Detroit and kind of the turnover we've had in the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years. They did a great job, and they had a great loyal customer base. So a sad loss.
Let's get to the big topic, Devon O'Reilly.
Literal, right?
Big, very, very large, although will be partially smaller topic.
Still be the tallest building in Michigan.
Still be the tallest topic. So here's the deal. We talked a little bit about it earlier this week. If you want all the details, you can go back to my episode with Cheyenne Oserini. There are the plans kind of announced for what the vision is for the RenCen, taking down 2 towers as Devon O'Reilly properly. Although we got a mountain of hate mail.
Listen, I screw up a lot, but this one I called the shot here.
Yeah. And there's a lot of thoughts around this. So all the details are in a previous episode. If you don't know, they're looking at a $1.6 billion project, take down 2 of the towers by the riverfront. They're going to shift around, do some residential, do a little bit of like hotel downsize,
with like luxury,
consolidate the offices like we talked about, because there's about an office building, a 1 tower worth of office building, a lot of public space.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it. Thoughts at what you see.
Well, thoughts are, we talked about this. Rewind to previous episodes because this is what I said was going to happen. And then this is what is seemingly on the table, at least, and taking the 2 towers, adding more public green space, connecting that riverfront. The riverfront has become our gem, kind of the heart of that area. Basically, the spine. The riverfront is the spine that runs, down Detroit that really connects it all together. So there's definitely an eye to continue to improve on the riverfront and create more public space. They're right sizing, I guess you would call it, right? Downsizing isn't maybe the right word. It's right sizing. There's still a need for office space. There's still a need for a hotel, but you can add some condos, some apartments. And that's the thing. If you really wanted to help that area, what you do need is, you and I talk about it, you need people who are consistently there. And offices are no longer places where people are consistently at, but apartments and condominiums are.
And, although there are greater forces at work, Olympia actually is asking for another extension with their District Detroit project. Why? Because they're going to have to reshuffle all of their stuff because offices are just not the wave.
Public space and permanent residences, I think, is the no-brainer. That's the way you have to go. And if you don't understand that or you don't like that, I'm sorry to tell you, you're either delusional or ignorant about it, or you don't go down there or hang out there as much. So I'm sorry, but that's the way this is going. It's got to be public space and it's got to be residences, and doubling down on that.
There are a couple of points I want to talk about with you specifically. First off, the public funding piece and how you feel about it.
Yeah, so it's, I think, $250 million what they go after.
Ish, right? Ish. And obviously, so people know, this is the lame duck session of the legislature. The reason why this is being announced, that this is an opportunity to get something like this through, because the Republican majority in the future says, I don't know if they'd actually execute on it, because we know incentives are often a bipartisan deal, but they say they wouldn't be for supporting the RenCen. But there's a difference between what people say and what they do.
Absolutely. It's a big number, $250 million. It's less than what District Detroit asked for, and it's less than the Hudson's. So as we're looking,
and it wouldn't be a cash check. That's the other thing, is it's not like they're going to write a check.
As we're looking in context, it was less than those. So let's just be kind of clear on that. I think it's a little more than what the Henry Ford Future of Health project is. So it's like not the biggest that's ever been asked for. We still don't know. Here's the details. I still will step aside and say I am also kind of naive on. I don't know exactly how this would work. We talk about DDA tax captures. This could be state incentives. I don't know yet. And I don't think we know yet how the $250 million would be pulled aside for this. But I will say this. If we're talking about development like we often do, and you're building like an office tower and you want incentives, there is some fair pushback in terms of, well, how is this going to benefit residents if you just want to build a new shiny building downtown or a new stadium, for instance? The fact that the crux of this development is to take down 2 towers and create more public space and, fill your brain with all the things that could be. That could be parks. That could be maybe a little aquarium, maybe a Ferris wheel. I know, just don't go off the renderings. I know people are just like jumping all over the renderings. That's not what is actually going to happen, but we are going to have public space. So so my point is that, is it worth the $250 million? I don't know, but I will say the fact that They're trying to create more space for the public, for the citizens of Detroit, for the citizens of Michigan to enjoy. There's some value to that, I believe.
Your point about specifics in the renderings, because even the renderings sometimes don't match each other. There is a feeling that I've gotten from listeners about a lack of details and a lack of specifics. And I think it's how are we going to connect Jefferson to, the rest of downtown to those towers? I think that's why they're keeping the two towers towards downtown, because it's actually a very big campus. It's quite a walk from one to the other as somebody who's been in those towers quite a bit. And there's like, well, how does this play into 375? One thing that keeps coming up, and you're going to laugh, but a lot of people have been mentioning, where is the aquarium? Like they would love to see an aquarium. They would love to see those things.
But Jer, okay, people need to settle the F down, honestly. These are just renderings. This is just announced. Like, people, I think, are way too overzealous. First of all, people love to be critics. So they're way too overzealous to just jump in, just pile on and criticize this. It's a freaking picture, Jer. It's a rendering, an AI rendering. That's all. It's like a picture. I think people are just jumping all over something where like this is still so new, still so fresh. We don't know everything that's going to happen. It's like, where's the aquarium? Maybe there is going to be an aquarium. The first rendering of the Hudson site, do you remember what that looked like?
Oh my gosh.
Completely different.
You're right.
So I think people tend to, I almost wish you wouldn't release renderings sometimes and let people kind of imagine, because take away the renderings. And
it doesn't go viral without the renderings.
Right.
It doesn't go viral. Same thing with the Detroit sign that went completely sideways.
But listen to what is actually being said. It's very vague. More public space, residential. Like, this more public space idea. Look at all the cool stuff they've done on the riverfront. I think people who are doing this stuff are really intelligent, really smart people. Bedrock has a track record that I would not attack because they have a really, really amazing track record. So I trust them to do the right thing. They're going to create cool stuff. So like whatever you think might happen, it could. Oh, it could be an arcade, could be a Ferris wheel, could be an aquarium. It could be. Just because you don't see it in the rendering doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I think there's some really cool stuff. I don't think they're going to do all this, Jer, just to put some grass and pavement down. I really don't think that's the case. So there's more to come.
Another concern people talked about was parking and sent me messages about the episode was that, they don't really like garages. The issue being like, if you're going to take out parking, if you're going to do these things. And I would push back and say like, the RenCen was designed as a mini self-contained city of more than 10,000 people. And much like a previous episode where we talk about how Detroit has to think about right sizing, that is what we have to do with this. There's going to be plenty of parking with this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think as long as there are set-asides for like disabilities and things like that, which there will be, I think that this is going to be all right. Like, we're going to be okay with this.
Yeah, there's also massive parking decks there, like multiple, like 4 or 5 massive parking decks. And I don't think they're going to get taken out. Or if one does, okay, you'll maybe lose one parking deck in it. But even in what I've heard talked about in the renderings, I know. But the parking decks were still there. So I don't think you're going to lose a lot of parking.
And then the Grand Prix, which to me, I want to raise this point about the Grand Prix. As somebody who's followed the Grand Prix, I've been to the Grand Prix. When I worked in my corporate life, I dealt with the suites of the Grand Prix. So I've been around the Grand Prix quite a bit. The Grand Prix is a branding exercise. It does not make money. And my guess is that you're going to see a reroute by the new General Motors headquarters, which, by the way, they're now leasing half the building, or they've really increased what they're going to lease from Dan Gilbert. I think you're just going to see a reroute, and this is where you might actually see a Grand Prix either cross Woodward or part of Woodward. I know there's streetcar tracks there, but you could set up barriers or do whatever you need to do. I think you're going to see a whole different Grand Prix route that is going to be different if you don't have a road going in front of it, and I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. Overall, I believe in this vision. You could let your imagination run wild with some of the stuff. Like, could you extend the queue line to get like, an extra stop that gets you really close to the RenCen, perhaps? You already have.
Oh, that would be great.
You could really
take it like a riverfront jaunt.
Yeah, exactly. You could really jazz up that people mover stop and make it like, a really amazing people mover stop. So I don't know. I think there's still a lot to be done, but I'm optimistic. The only hesitation I have, frankly, Jer, is as someone who enjoys the restaurants that are there, I wonder what happens to, the Highlands presumably is still on the top of the RenCen. I would imagine that stays.
I think there's going to have to be some switches.
Yeah, like Andiamo and Joe Muir's spaces, which I love Joe Muir. Again, one of my favorites. I'm sure something's going to have to happen.
One of them just got remodeled.
Joe Muir just got remodeled. It was a light remodel. I mean, it doesn't look that much different, but still nice. So it's a great restaurant. So I wonder if there's room. When you're talking about 1.6 billion, I'm hoping maybe they cut a few million to Joe Muir and say, we'll help support a rebuild of your place. Because I don't think in any rendering that you can keep Joe Muir because it's at the end of the pedestal.
But you could move it somewhere else.
Yeah, you can move it somewhere else. I hope that there's some deal. And for Joe Vicari is a very smart businessman, so I'm sure they'll figure something out. But I just hope we don't lose Joe Muir from the RenCen. And I don't think we will. I think it'll be incorporated in the new plans.
I personally am really glad to see the podium get deleted.
Yeah.
It's time.
There's not much to it, you know? And the winter garden was a great idea, but it's useless.
It was an idea to work with what you had, and it was an improvement over what was there.
It ended up being like a giant, almost cafeteria space, you know? There's like nothing in there. A cafeteria space with no place to actually get food. So like the winter garden needs to just go, and it will go.
And I think that mothballing it was never going to be an option. I don't think that's an option in 2024 Detroit.
No, it's just too iconic. And I think I will say again, I know there's people, I'm in my head, I'm thinking of all the comments that I've seen, and oh my goodness, have there been comments.
Especially about the visual impact of changing those towers.
The visual impact is going to be minimal. The skyline is not going to change that much. It may even be enhanced. And, you know, for people talking about like, oh, you can't do, it's like, this is the way we save the RenCen. Like for the people, the preservationists or the people who, you know, don't want to lose the RenCen, you're not going to lose the RenCen, but we had to do something massively different with it. And this is the way to do it. This is the way we save the RenCen.
The reality is the RenCen's always been a spruce goose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
An albatross. It's never been quite right.
I go to Henry Ford Museum enough to know about the spruce goose. So
the spruce goose, if people don't know, it's a beautiful, beautiful airplane, but completely useless and completely like wrong size and everything else, but super cool.
Well, we're going to turn that spruce goose of the RenCen into a nice 747.
All right. I would love your feedback. dailydetroit@gmail.com. Feel free to yell at us. Feel free to talk about what would you like to see there. Ferris wheel, attractions, aquarium. Like, I think these things are possible. And I think this is opening up a conversation with developers and other business people to partner together to say, oh, what could we do? Because it's going to take more than $1.6 billion. Hopefully this $1.6 billion encourages another $500 million or another $1 billion of like, oh, we're going to do other things because this is so much better now.
And I think the public should have some say. And to get that $250 million, I'm sure some negotiations are going to have to be made. And I absolutely think that the public should be able to say, if we're going to create public space, what do we want there? And so I think that the developers would be right to take that into consideration. So I do think this is going to come to a happy-ish ending where it'll be a beautiful, beautiful public space with all sorts of awesome amenities for people. And hopefully, you know, they'll get the $250 million they need to get this done.
All right. As I said, feedback dailydetroit@gmail.com. Thank you to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit. Local media requires local support. We've got some big things starting in December. Very much looking forward to it. With that, I am Jer Stays.
I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody. Have a wonderful time over the holidays, and we will talk on Monday.